Hi everyone and welcome to my studio. Diane here. If you're here for the first time, welcome. This is where we have fun with art together in a no stress, no pressure environment. And maybe you're here to find out more about how we use a reverse colouring book. We've just created one for you which is now in our shop, and there are lots out there to choose from as it's a bit of a thing right now. And what we're doing today is exploring two ways of using a reverse colouring sheet, one with pens and one with watercolour paints. I have a free download of a worksheet for all our Patreon members, which you can get by going to Patreon. Plus, be sure to stick around to the end of the video for a helpful tip on planning the composition of your work. So let's start by looking at the types of pens I recommend for this reverse colouring technique. Now, there's so many things I want to say about this, and I don't really know quite where to start. I've got all my pens out here to show you all the different ones that I've got, because that's the first way to start is to actually begin with pens. You can use paints as well, or you can use markers or watercolour brushes or whatever you want. But I think most people tend to start with fine liners when they start doing reverse colouring. It kind of makes sense because, after all, the idea is that you're providing the lines that go with the design. So you can see on the cover here, somebody had just begun to do some lines on the top there, just to give you the idea. And the great thing about this is there's no pressure because, you know, it's just entirely up to you. So in this book, we have got 12 floral designs, and I think there are actually 3 bonus pages as it happens. And these designs are all ones that I've painted recently, using the Art Nouveau paints. And one of the ways in which you can use this book, as well as for reverse colouring, is as a starting point for your own paintings. And what I've done here, actually, I will show you this. I've printed some of them out onto watercolour paper, and not all printers will take £140, but most printers will take £90. And so you can print these out, and these are kind of halfway done paintings. So you could print this out and then you can go in there with your watercolours and so on and take it to another level using watercolour. So that's kind of practice, taking something that I've started and then you can finish it, and you can always print it out again and do it again, or copy it or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it's what you might call high art, but it's a starting point. And you know, some people struggle with the composition and how to put things on the paper or where to get started. And this kind of can help. So that's the reason why I'm mentioning that. Now, in this book, we've got lots of different types of pictures. Some of them have got leaves on, some of them haven't got so many. Some of them are mostly roses. Some of them are very formless, and you could do a lot with that. But I think to start with, probably what I would suggest, maybe, perhaps, today, might be to take one of the ones that's got a basic outline like this. That one, for example, I think would probably be a good one to start with. And I'm just going to show you some different marks that I can make with my pens on that. And this is just printed on ordinary copy paper. So we'll just pop that over there out of the way, and I'll put this one here because I'm going to do something with that in a minute. Lots of different kinds of pens here, and you've probably seen me use all of these from time to time. I think one of my favourites is the Fudenasuke pen, which has a, it has a kind of softish nib. I need something to rest on. Can I rest on that? I'll take my book here. So when you press down, you get a dark line, and when you do it lightly, you get a thin line. And that's really, really useful for reverse colouring. I think that's probably one of my favourites of all time. It comes in a hard and a soft version. It's written on the side here in small writing. Where is it? Here we are. BH, that means black hard. And then this one, which has got the black colour to the outside, is BS, and that's black soft. One helpful tip, perhaps, if you have a lot of these pens, what I do is when they're new, I leave them alone. And as they get older, I put, and not quite so full of paint, full of ink, I put a piece of washi tape around them. And when they're really starting to get old, I put another piece. So this one has been used a bit, and this one's been used quite a bit. So I can keep them. I don't throw them away until they're completely dead. So I keep them, but I know if I really want a nice, dark, rich line, I'll go for one without a piece of tape on it. And if I'm just like doing an eye or something, where I only need a little bit of ink, then I can use that one. So it's just a thought. So those are the Fudenosuke ones. We've also got, of course, the Stettler pigment liners, which are a good standby. There's nothing much to be said about those. They come in different widths, from 0.05 all the way up to 0.8 or 1.0. I'm not sure if I've got a 1.0, but there's a 0.05. And that's a 0.8. There is a significant difference, as you can see, to the nibs. Yeah, so that's those. And then the similar thing, we have these ones here. This is the Pigma Micron. That's also same kind of thing. But slightly different is the Winsor & Newton fine liner, which has got a different sort of shape to the business end of it, so to speak. This is much more extended, I think, if you can see the difference there, because this is, I consider this to be more artistic looking, and this is more technical. So this is a technical pen for the draftsmanship and so on and so forth, in my view, and much more masculine. This is a little bit more feminine, don't you think? Has a bit more kind of, you know, je ne sais quoi, so to speak. So not only black, but also grey. And when you start doing your, excuse my hands, I know they're dirty, I don't know why, probably because I've been handling these pens. When you start doing your reverse colouring, you could start with grey. It's kind of less committing, isn't it? And this one, I think this is a Tombow pen too, and it has grey. I think it's got grey at one end and black at the other. Shall I just check that? Yeah, that's black, and that's a nice soft nib, and that is grey. So I think I might today start with that one. And then I've got another one here also. That's a harder one. That's not a, you know, that's a little bit soft, but not as soft as that. So those are both Tombows. They're quite good. And then, of course, going from grey, we go to white. And my favourite, my most used, and they don't last for long. They really don't. There's nothing much you can do about it. They dry up, or they empty out really quite quickly. Again, a piece of tape, that means it's been used. So when I open it up, if I want to look, I can see the ink is already a long way down. And even though it's not empty, it starts to kind of skip a little bit sometimes. The rougher your paper, the less likely they are to work well. The smoother your paper, the better, really. This is a new one, you see. It's completely full. And that's, I can tell that because it hasn't got a piece of tape on it. So that works. This is so that's ink, kind of, I suppose it's acrylic. Then I've got a Posca here, that's white. I don't really get on terribly well with them. And then the Artistro white paint pens with an extra fine tip. That's not what I would call super fine. And they do get a bit mucky. And to tell you the truth, don't use them terribly often. They're a bit more crafty than they are arty. But, you know, they come in handy from time to time. Then we've got the Uniball gel pens. I've got silver. They come in a set of silver, gold and white, I think. But I don't seem to have the gold at the moment. But that's really nice. You can use that for lots of things, obviously. And then I've got some Sharpies, silver, copper kind of colour and gold. They're okay. All of these things you can use. And then this is my new favourite I wanted to mention to you. This is called a slicky or slitchy, I don't know how you pronounce that. It's a very small little pen. It's very slim, and it has a nice ridged holding place there, which is, I find that really useful. I do find things tend to slip between my fingers these days, slipping through your fingers isn't that ABBA? Yes. But really very intense gold. I really like this pen. I heartily recommend it. I think it's better than these ones and these ones. I know they're silver, but I haven't got the gold ones at the moment. But Slicky, it'll be in the description below. And I like it also because it's slim. I know sometimes as you get older, it becomes more difficult to hold small things, but there's the plus side to the smallness of things is that they're lighter as well, so it's not quite so much encumbrance. Ugh. Don't think I've had a problem putting the lid on before. Am I putting the right lid on? I think so. That's it. Okay, so that's a quick rundown of the pens that I have. And so now I'll put them out of the way. Oh, these are drawers that come from a Meaden piece of furniture. You'll find that on their website and on Amazon. Storage unit with drawers. Very useful, actually. I heartily recommend that to go on your Christmas list. Right. So I'll use this double-ended Tombow pen, black, grey. And let's start with the grey, just because. Excuse me. So let's see how it goes. If I just emphasize the outside line, not necessarily sticking exactly to the shape that has been painted, because I never do. And we're just, now I'm beginning to imagine myself sitting watching television or listening to some music. That would be nice, actually. This is something that you could easily do while you're listening to music, couldn't you? Something nice and calming, you know, a little bit of Mozart or whatever. And you're not trying to achieve anything. You're just chilling out, because we all need to do that so often. There's always something going wrong. And you can practice your strokes. You could perhaps add black. You might want to, you could add berries to the little ones, couldn't you? Like that. And you could go round dots up here. I'm going to put together a kind of crib sheet, worksheet, thingy what's it, with different ideas for shapes and doodles that you can do, which you can download for free. I will do that probably this afternoon. And I'm going to do this one with the black. And it's fun because you can press down and lift up, press down and lift up. And you get this, I don't know, it's just really good. You will enjoy it, I guarantee you. You'll enjoy that feeling. And all I've done is print this out on regular copy paper. Actually, it's not even regular copy paper, it's cheap. Cheap copy paper. Really cheap. Cheapy cheap cheap. That was a song too. Yep. So let's what? Let's go back to the grey, perhaps, and do this one. Go down one side of the centre line there a little bit, maybe, because it's quite thick, that one. And then perhaps I'll go round just one side. And if you wanted to add colour, I've got a set here actually of, these are Stabilo felt tip pens. I think they're meant for children, but we got them from Teddy. Very cheap. So you can do something like that with coloured felt tips if you want. Or you could use brush pens. The Poetique ones are good, but they are a bit more expensive now. They were cheap at the beginning, but they've put the price up now. I think they're $50 rather, which is quite a lot. And we'll do some berries here as well. And you can put stalks on the berries. We could have done the berries in red or some other colour if you wanted to. So if you were to buy one of these reverse colouring books from Etsy or from our website, then what was I going to say? Yeah, at the moment, if you do that after having read our newsletter, you can get one of our regular colouring books for free. We'll send you a coupon. So you will have probably signed up for our newsletter on our website, and probably you've got a copy of it somewhere in your inbox. And that'll tell you all about it. And that brightens things up a little bit, doesn't it? To put some yellow. Yeah, interesting. So you can just kind of also think about going over part of the leaves, petals. Ah. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay, so you could add stems and things like that. You could put in completely new leaves for the flowers that are a bit short on those things. And we can colour that in too. Okay, let's do this one. and so on and so on and so on and so on. And so having shown you how I would go about doing this one, I'm going to move on now to a slightly different approach. And obviously you can carry on with doing all sorts here. I mean, there's a turquoise colour here, which I think could be quite nice to... Oh, look at that. Well, you just get to play with colour, really, apart from anything else. No commitment. You never know what you're going to do you? And we can put some more kind of things in here. Nothing to be afraid of. At all. Yeah, I think it's true to say that a little bit of colour goes a long way. So we can, if we just, I will move on to the next thing in a minute, but I'm getting a bit more inspired here now. It takes a little while to warm up. So we can do that one in that green. And what about this one? It's a nice blue. What a great way to warm up before you start painting. Honestly, do give that a thought when you're going to do a painting, especially if you're trying to do something sort of special for somebody. You need to think about, that's quite thin, isn't it? Warming up a bit, because you need to, and I don't like the expression myself very much, but it's true in a way, you need to get the creative juices flowing. And that means you have to start, and you don't want to start with the thing that you're sort of hoping that's going to turn out good enough to give to somebody, because you can't just give people rubbish, can you? Anyway, so there we are. That's well on the way to being completed. And then, so now the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm thinking I might do a bit of work on this one. And for this, I'm going to use some paints. And what I've got here is my VH Aquarelle set, but any set would do. This is, I'm decided to use this because it's the botanical set. Botanical. And so it seemed appropriate. And I just get myself a palette and some paint on my finger. Excuse me a second. I'll just try to remove some of that. Yeah, and the other day when I was playing with these paints, I made myself this little swatch reference here. And I made a bunch of squares and I painted each of the colours on each square and I put a doodle on top. So here we've got Caput Mortem. So it goes like that, and then the next one is Violet. And these ideas were ideas that I wanted to use for doodling. And this is Anthro Blue. And then we've got Moss Green. And so they are actually in order. Spinel Ochre is this colour. And then we've got something called Real Red. Might want to use some of that. Slate Grey. And this is a set that you can get from VH Aquarelle. They're all handmade by a lady who lives in Germany and she makes them there. And no, they're not the cheapest paints on the planet, but They are ecologically very sound, no problems with any of that. And eel blue and Indian yellow and lemon yellow. Victoria, her name is. So, I don't know, I can't remember now whether or not they need to be sprayed, but it's always a good idea before you start to give your watercolours a little bit of a spray. And I haven't got the faintest idea what I'm going to do, but this is the same sheets as these ones here in the book, but I printed the file out on, this is actually Paul Rubens watercolour paper. It's quite smooth, but it's not hot press, it's cold press, but it's relatively smooth. I think in France they would call that, what they call it is fine grain. So it's not really got much texture at all. So it's quite good for this. And you could easily work with pens on this surface. I don't think there'd be any problem with these pens, and I might very well do that. But first of all, I was thinking that I would come in with some brushwork first of all. So let me find a brush. I think I'll use a Drawwell because I found that. It's a size 7 round. Yeah, so let's see. Let's put a little bit of green here. And we will change the colour. And let's come over here. And every time you go back to pick up some paint, you should change the colour just a little bit. Even if you just add a little dab. I mean, when I say you should, that's completely not true. You don't have to, but I tend to. That's one of the ways that I tend to work. You don't want too much commitment anyway. We've got the caput mortuum here, this kind of greyish colour, which will work quite well with some of these greyish leaves. And this is kind of as if I was coming in, having done part of the painting, done the undercoat, so to speak, and now I'm going to do the next layer. And I haven't used this paper before, and I haven't done this technique before, so you'll have to bear with me. See what happens. I thought it would be a good idea to start with the leaves and then perhaps go to some additional work on the flowers. I haven't got any, any subject matter here. I'm not looking at any pictures or anything. I'm just working from memory, if you like, but really just painting what looks like it might look like, okay, but because I think it's there are quite a few YouTubers out there who purport to teach you and to say, do this, do that, do the other, and that's fine, but I'm not like that. That's not what I want to do, and I don't think I could anyway. I don't have, my heart wouldn't be in it. I prefer to just be a gentle, guiding light. I'm not even sure if I'm a light, just glow, a guiding glow. I'm mixing Caput Mortem and Real Red at the moment. And this one looks like it should be yellowish, so I'll pick up some of this. I've forgotten what that's called. Hang on. Spinel ochre. And then I think this is a grey. Oh no, that's blue. Hang on, it's this one then. Yeah, that's it. That's the colour I want for there. Perhaps a little bit of blue. And we just do some of these flowers over here, another layer on them. So all of them really we'll just go over again, and in a minute we'll have to dry it, or go and have lunch and wait for it to dry. And fill some of the gaps that don't have any green in with some dots and dashes of green. Oh yes, I think we need a little bit of greeny grey up here, don't we? These colours are nice and soft. Put some veins in these leaves. That often makes a lot of difference to the appearance of the painting. Just putting in a few veins. I'm just using up the paint that's sitting in the back of the palette there. If you want to sort of make an area darker, if you just, we call that pumping. When it's still damp, you can pump some paint in, and just by going like that, you've got paint on your brush, and you can let it come out just by going tap, tap, tap like that. See, like that. That's quite a good technique to give you some variety, and you get some nice backgrounds sometimes with that as well. And yeah, we can put put some dots around here. Sort of partially dry, so it'll partly run. Just using really the total point of the brush, and you can get quite fine lines. Mixing this grey with this quite sharp moss green gives you a softer, much softer green, a greenish grey or a greyish green. To do your veins with. Do a bit more pumping. A few dots. And maybe just add a little bit of red to that, and we can come into the red ones here. A little bit of red, a little bit of grey. Whoops. Grey and red. And just put some dots in the centres of these using the grey with the real red. A bit more grey. It's not grey by the time it's been mixed. And then if we use the grey to give ourselves a nice contrasty tonal variety, it doesn't really matter where you put your strokes. You just need some, and then we'll kind of come in with some stems which are a little bit darker. We can find some places for them. And don't forget, it will dry differently. And just some centres. Okay, so what we need to do now is basically let that dry and then see whether there's anything else needs to be done. So that's dry now, and I want to make an alteration. This here somehow to me doesn't look quite right. This part I think is fine, and this part is fine, but this is, as usual, the center of the painting is wrong. Here's an idea. I don't know quite what to do. So what I do now is I get myself a piece of tracing paper, or greaseproof paper. Not greaseproof if you can help it, because that's hard to make paint work on it. But I just get a piece of tracing paper like this, and then I'm going to try out one or two ideas. So for example, what would happen if I painted another flower here, for example? Would that improve it? Or would it be better to put in another leaf here? Another couple of leaves. Maybe that would work. Or would it be better to go here and extend this leaf out a little bit, or even take a branch out and put some more leaves like that, for example? Or would that make it worse? So anyway, the idea being that you can try out, before you commit yourself, different solutions. Maybe we just need a little bit of a leaf there, or maybe, and this is always risky, we could try removing a little bit of the paint that we'd put there, because sometimes it's only just one small amount of too dark that hasn't quite worked. So you could take that off, but you don't want to play with it too much. And don't forget, some of it has been printed on, so you won't be able to get rid of that. So we can lift off that and then dry it. And then maybe try the idea of another leaf coming down like that. I think probably, well, I don't know, see, that's in the wrong direction. And you could spend all afternoon thinking about this. Maybe that would work. That's probably the best thing to do, because I can't afford to spend all afternoon. You know, I've got other things to do, places to go, people to see. Not really. So we'll put a little leaf in there and another little one in there. And I think that will do. And then one of the other tricks that you can do when you've got an area that you're not too fond of, if you try to sort of direct the eye away from it by adding something else, somewhere else, not too far away, some little delicate touches, for example, like that. And then you'll find that the eye, and I'm sure you'll be able to do this far better than me, the eye will go off looking further. See how these nice things blurred there, where we were pumping in, and then we can distract the eye a little bit further down here like that too. Before you know where you are, you don't even remember that you ever had a problem. And these little leaves, like those ones, that's quite sweet. We can do another couple down here. And one here, perhaps. And maybe one over here. And I think that's probably enough. I don't think I want to do any more. So there we are. That's another way of using... Oh yeah, and you could put some white in there. That is a good point. Yes, I'd forgotten that. I was going to say, with your white pen, if you can make it work, it always writes on my hand, but doesn't. You could add some white dots into the center of some of your flowers if you wanted to. Like that. So there we are. That's that. 2 different ways of finishing off a picture from a reverse colouring book, to either use liners and markers and things like that to do something like this, which is a bit more graphic, or take the original from your book and make a photocopy or a print on decent paper. This is watercolour paper, and then you can turn it into a watercolour painting. You could still come in with line work on top of this, and that's quite fun. And what's even more fun is to do it and then do it again, and then do one with line and one without, and see how you feel about the 2 different ways of doing it. And I might very well do that. I'm going to revisit this again, come back again and do another one, I think, at some point in the not too distant future. So if you want to follow along with me, just you can purchase the reverse colouring book from our website or from Etsy, and on Patreon as well. Sorry, it's in the Patreon shop as well if you are on Patreon. So yeah, that's enough rambling from me. I'll let you go. I'll see you soon, and thank you for being with me today. Bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye.